So hi everyone. My name is Shay or Sherry or however you know me. And I have no idea what I'm going to say today. When I was in Mexico at Teotihuacan on a spiritual retreat with the Ruiz family, I knew that I was going to come back and make a video, and it was going to be a video to be of service. And then it was kind of funny because Don Jose says, oh, well, your homework is to go back home and make a video of yourself. And by the way, if you hear that noise, two of my cats are very enthusiastic about this video. So yes, one of them is eating the plants as we speak. Callie, get down, sweetheart. Yes, cats will be cats. But in any case, he said, well, go back and make a video of yourself so you can remember this. So you can see yourself in your own eyes. And so that's partly what this is, I think, too. And when I was there, as I say a lot in my writings that you can read on my blog post, is that there really are no words for things like this. That yes. Cats, right? Okay. So anyway, as I said, the animals are very enthusiastic because animals are all about unconditional love. And really that's what this is, because love is the only power of the universe. We use a lot of different terms. We use energy and power and what we're feeling and all of these things. But the biggest power in the universe is love. And 2 years ago, I made a vow to myself. And in some terms, you might consider it a marriage vow to yourself. Like you marry yourself, or you merge with yourself, or in ceremonial magic terms, you merge with your holy guardian angel. And one night, actually it was the second night that we were in Mexico, and we had gone that day to the Plaza of Hell to release all the things that no longer served. And it was a powerful experience for me. It was the last shedding of the skin, and it is, as Don Jose writes and talks about, as the rattlesnake. And what is so funny is that, of course, before I came, a rattlesnake, a portion of one came into my hands as a gift, and the snake was very unhappy. The spirit was very unhappy. And I said, on my way to heal that spirit. And right before I left, I really felt that there'd been a shift, and that spirit of that rattlesnake was at peace. And when I walked through the Plaza of Hell, I felt that spirit with me. And I am not judging myself for this, but I will say that I am not quite sure how to pronounce it appropriately, but you know, the sentiment is always the same. But Quetzalcoatl, the deity where there was the temple there, when I was making those connections and I touched the walls, and in my vision, in my imagination, and imagination isn't a bad thing. Imagination is your creation, as I always tell my own students, because it really comes from within. It's your own creation. And in that vision, I saw him on top of the temple, and I saw him flying above, and the freedom of coming from down below and flying and soaring at those great heights as the transformation takes place and the shedding of the skin. And I remember standing on top of the island of safety where we released these items, and I still had my stones that were symbolic of it. And Don Jose saw me and came up to me and gave me a hug, and I looked in his eyes, or he looked into mine, and there just wasn't any words. And there wasn't any need to say anything. And it was beautiful. And I saw that first glimmer. Well, it was more than a glimmer. It was really shiny and bright, but of myself, right? Because he was a clear mirror. And we talk a lot about being a mirror for others and others being a mirror for us in spiritual terms and on this path. And I know I do in my own apprenticeships, and others have, talked about that concept with me. To be a clear mirror is to be yourself with only love for yourself and no judgment for yourself and no judgment for anyone else. And one of the things that really struck me was when Don Jose said, and sorry, I just had a flashback to the cats knocking off the tin plate earlier in this. It's great, isn't it? It's just fabulous. Okay, but anyway, so Don Jose said that we're all equals. That we're his equal. And it really resonated with me. And more than that, it struck this huge chord in my soul. And I'll come back to that, I think, in a little moment. Powerful. And it's amazing sometimes how the words, when they're used as symbols, like he talks about that in the fifth agreement, but the words when they're used with symbols, when they come from a point of clearness and of love, can be so powerful, can help you see that within yourself, can help you cut with that sort of truth to the center of your own heart and find that within. Because as you know, they always say, what you don't find within, you will never find without. And that's for a reason, because it was within you all the time. So that evening, Don Miguel Ruiz gave a talk, and he used a book called Prayers. This book, very shiny, very nice, happy little book. Special, special book. And he read this prayer, The Circle of Fire. And what's funny is I had just bought the book, The Circle of Fire, right before I went on the trip too, and I hadn't read it yet. Well, it turns out it's the same book, and it was reissued. So if you're looking for it, it's this one, and I highly recommend it, The Circle of Fire. And in this book, there is a prayer, and it's a prayer to yourself. And as he read it and he talked about it and what each one of the words meant, it brought me back 2 years ago to a time when I made a similar prayer to myself. And I knew this book was special, and I went back to my room and I read the prayer for myself again, just for myself. And as I lay there in bed, the most incredible wave of feeling came over me. And I could see, that day 2 years ago. And I could feel my love, and I could see and feel myself and all of those who are on this journey with me, all of my new brothers and sisters, and I could feel the 7 billion people on this planet, and I could feel their dreams, and I could feel their hopes, I could feel their fears, but most importantly, I just overflowed with the most amazing love for them. And again, this is one of those things where I'm trying to put into words something for which I just really don't have words, but in the hopes that those words as a symbol might trigger something within yourself that you too can see yourself. because whatever you see in me doesn't have anything to do with me at all. Whatever you see in me, whatever you see in my eyes, is only you. It's your love. It's your brightness. It's your sun that is going within your own heart and coming out of your own eyes. So the next morning, I asked Don Miguel Ruiz to sign my book, and I sat down in front of him and I told him that it was very special. And then I ran back to my room because I was going to get my copy of the Fifth Agreement and ask Don Jose to sign it. And he was sitting there on the ground next to his father. And so I ran back to my room and I came back and I sat down next to him cross-legged on the floor. And he signed my book. And, I said like some chit-chat thing or whatever. And I started to get up and said, oh, I don't want to impose. You've got other things to do, kind of a thing, And he's like, no, sit. And so I sat and I talked about our journey to the temple of the woman and how much it had meant to me and how healing it was for me on my own, like the end of my womb journey, the end of my ancestral healing journey. And, there aren't any words for that either. And then as I sat there and talked to him, I told him about the night before, and I tried to explain it, and I just stopped talking, and he looked into my eyes, and I said, I just don't have any words. I don't know how to explain it. And he said, you don't need any words. And I'm like, well, I said, I said, you can see and you can feel it. And he said, yes. And we sat there, and he just stared into my eyes, and he was that mirror for me. That clear mirror where I could see myself. And it wasn't about him. It was only about me. He was love, and it allowed me to see myself. I could see myself shining back to myself, because really, we're all one. And I was crying. And he called me his sister, and I just felt this incredible sense of connection and love with everything around me, and just radiating outward and inward, because it really all was the same. And it was such a gift. And I'm never going to forget that. I've had some in my life who have been good mirrors for me. David Corbin, who passed away, who was part of the 2-week shamanic healing intensive. He was my teacher there. Dana and Shana Robinson, who teach with the Foundation for Shamanic Studies. Mickey Mueller, who's been my sister and my teacher for many years. But there was something different about this experience that I felt like it melted away the last part, and it helped me restore my faith, which is one of my words for this year, is faith. My faith and my own trust within myself. And since a time 2 years ago when I stood at the altar and I made the vow to myself, a lot of things happened. And I remember a moment after that, I was sitting there with the sister and I could see myself. And when I look at it, the sense of connection and the beauty and the love, and it was just the same thing. And, less than a week later, I had my first of 3 womb surgeries. And my cat died. And I left some of my teachers behind, and I went to my first Foundation for Shamanic Studies weekend, and I took the 7-week course in mastery, And that was by the Ruiz family, and I was able to tell them this week how much that meant to me. And it was at the right time and the perfect time. So during that time of my womb journey, you may not know, but I didn't have a gig, right? I mean, like, I was hemorrhaging most all of the time, and it was something that really wasn't doable. So after this culminated in my final surgery, the day after the picnic and our big booth there in June of 2013, I had that surgery. And then about a month and a half later, I started a new gig, still shifting my life. I completed my Martha Beck life coach training. That I completed in July of 2014. And I continued to do the work. And you can read about some of it on my blog post, because as I talked about it, I talked about, releasing the shackles, releasing all of the things that no longer serve, finding the love within yourself. And it was a journey that was just beyond words. And I knew in every single moment of the journey, even, through the most challenging parts of it, that I was light and I was love, and this was going to make me better. This was going to bring me back fully to myself, that there was something that I was supposed to get out of this. And there were many, many lessons and many, many gifts along the way. I just didn't know how amazing it was going to be in the end, right? I mean, I knew it was going to be good, but I couldn't have scripted it like this, right? So I went on this trip and I read that poem and I had that experience. And as I talked about it and I walked with Don Jose, I remembered some words that had been said to me. And I remembered a similar moment when I was sitting cross-legged by a teacher 2 years ago and felt this overwhelming feeling of love. And when we walked to Tila, the Temple of Truth, I realized, and I told Don Jose, I said, I realized that it was me all along. That it was me all along and it wasn't my teacher. And all of that love that I felt was still there. And the other thing is the words were said to me, I want you to be my equal. I want you to be my equal someday. And I want all of you to know that you are my equal. And I am your equal. And we're all the same. And no one is better than anyone else. And it doesn't matter where you are in your journey. It doesn't matter if you've reached this point of being awake. It doesn't matter where you are. You are absolutely perfect just the way you are. You are beautiful. You are love. You are light. And you are absolutely perfect. And you are a gift. You are part of the divine just the way you are. And yeah, so that was a huge gift to me, a huge, huge gift. And it helped me find that trust again within, to see my own self, to see my own beauty, to see my own light, and to see my own love. And I finally pulled off all the masks that were projected onto me and that I allowed to be projected onto me. And I was no longer subjugating my will. And this 2-year process has been me claiming my own power, standing fully in my own power, but seeing the love within me and seeing the love within everybody else. Because everyone is in their own dream and they're doing the best that they can. And it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. And this weekend, well, not weekend, it was almost a week, it was 5 days, I had the privilege to be with some of the most love-filled people and to experience this, with them also as mirrors as well. So when I stood on New Year's Day on the top of the Temple of the Sun, I remarried myself, right? we all had so much fun joking about our bachelor and bachelorette parties and how we were going to, marry ourselves. But it all goes back to the prayer, to your angel, to your holy guardian angel, to your higher self, to your essential self, to your soul self, your God self, whatever you want to call it. But the real you, the you without all of the stuff that we put onto it. And it was just that. It just was beautiful. And so we talked about it when we got back, and it was just amazing. I know I went back and I took a shower because, we'd been hiking around or whatever, and I went to class early, and I saw Don Miguel standing there with a wand in his hand. And I thought to myself, oh, he's got a wand in his hand, And so I was just going to sit down. He was doing his own thing in the grass or whatnot, and I sat down. But he came over to me, and seeing myself in the mirror of his eyes was, yeah, that's just it, just that right there. And I was able to share part of this story with the group at the end, and I was crying and tears were rolling down my cheeks, but I was so, so, so happy, because that's all we're really here for, is to be happy, right? To be happy. I mean, what a miracle. I mean, I've got hands and eyes and toes and all of everything, right? I can breathe, and so it's to be happy. And as I sat there and I told just a little bit of the story, I was just really, really struck by it, about how amazing it is. And some of the words that Don Miguel and Don Jose and Don Miguel Jr. had said that day, about, once you awake, you can never go back to sleep. And it's like riding a bicycle, and you fall down and you get back up again. And, I said that was true, because I never did go back to sleep from 2 years ago. And I was there all along. And you may sit down you may fall off the bike, and things may happen. Like, things happen in my life. And it's all for a beautiful reason. And you may sit there on the ground for a while, and that's okay. It's really okay. There's no timetable. There's no schedule. It's just all about you. And then you stand up and you realize that you were never asleep, that you were still awake all along. So I just want to say to all of you that I look forward to sharing more of this as we go forward. And I know I've worked with their books for a long time, starting with the 4 agreements. And, we work with those in the mystery school as part of the texts that we use to work with. And the students meditate and journal on them daily and we work on each chapter like a lesson a month, and they live with those each month. And being able to see what these teachings and these messages bring to others, just like they have to me, is just incredible. It's absolutely so incredible, and it's such a blessing to see. So if you haven't read any of these books, I highly recommend them. And I think I'm looking at a stack of books in front of me, and I don't think I mentioned Don Miguel Jr.'s 5 Levels of Attachment, which is a very powerful book as well, because all of this is about detaching. It's detaching from our stories. It's detaching from the masks that have been put on us and that we've placed onto others, and releasing all of that and letting it fall off into the ground so that we can fly and be our true selves. and fly with the eagle and be one with the spirit that's within. So all my love to you guys. And I hope that, I hope that maybe something in this like clicks with you, and if not, that's okay too. And I love you. And yeah, so until next time, okay? Ciao.